to this variable. It's very clever code behind the scenes. That's all I want to talk about generators for now. It's just to know that this code looks synchronous. It's not, it's asynchronous. This value will eventually resolve, and we can assign this value to a variable because of how Icicle is set up. So I've gone ahead and I've downloaded the Icicle source code because or through packages, because I don't want to do that now in case it is really slow. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a basic server, and I just want to go to the example code and get like an example HTTP server up and accepting requests, and then we'll look at doing other things like creating routes for these things so that we can have different endpoints on our web server or serving files or that kind of thing. So I'll just call this server, I don't know, index, naming is hard, man, index.php. And because we're loading stuff through Composer, which is PHP's package manager, we need to include a bootstrapping file for that. So that looks like this, require, and it's just in the same directory, vendor autoload. So this __dir is for saying the current directory that the script is in. It's like a magical variable or magical constant, and then it returns the directory of this file without a trailing slash. So we add that in, and we say, okay, go into vendor and autoload.php. That's in here, and autoload.php. So this is like a class loader that is generated every time we update the dependencies of this application. If we include this at the top of our script, we will have all of the classes that we've downloaded through Composer, and they will be lazy loaded, so only when they're requested, which is cool for us. So we can do this. Then let's get the example code from this file. In fact, hold on. I want to check the version of Composer the version of Icicle that I'm loading here, because there are different versions going on in that repo. So Composer show, or is it Composer show or Composer list? Composer list. Composer show. Information about packages. I can't remember this command. Composer show help. Should have done that. There we go. Composer show installed. I am the worst at typing. I think that is easy to establish. Okay, HTTP version 2.1. So if we head on over to that tag, then we can just make sure that the docs we're referencing are for that. HTTP releases this one here. Yes, that does deserve a burning basket. Okay, so we know we're in here. Actually, maybe what we want to do is click this link here. I get really confused trying to find revision-based like code at the specific revision. It's weird. Okay, so examples, server. This is relevant to the version that we've got installed. So let's get the raw content for this. You see, this also requires the current directory. Okay, I'll talk a little bit about this after I've made sure that it's working. But to get this to work, we don't run it through Apache or Nginx like before. What we do is we just run it through the PHP interpreter, and it will create a long-running process. Now the port that it listens on is this, so we can go here. There we go. Okay, so this is working. Now let me tell you why it's working. Let's make it a bit bigger so you can read that. Okay. So what this does, I mean, there's a lot of nonsense up here, but what this does is it gets the body from the request. Like this this function gets triggered every time a socket connection is made to the server. So it gets the request body, and while there is data to read, it puts that in a temporary variable. Then it stores that stuff in like a special stream instance. This is like one of the Icicle streams, and I'm not sure exactly why this is used, except that I think this response expects a stream interface, like a rewindable stream. So maybe that's why that's used. Now remember I said that when this yield is called, it suspends execution. That's because read is an asynchronous operation. It's actually this method will return a promise, and a promise is an eventual value. So it's something that's not yet resolved. It will be resolved after some I/O happens. So this suspends execution. When this data is read, it gets appended to the data variable, and that happens until there's nothing more to read. So this is end of file, I guess, on the request. That's dumped in this temporary stream and returned in the form of creating a new response. We can actually yield new response. We don't need to assign that directly. And so we set a plain content type, get the length from that stream, the amount of data, I guess, in it, string length, and provide it. I think this response must require a stream. I think that's why that's there. It's the only thing I can think of. Now, because we're using this in place of Apache or Nginx or another web server, we have to set the ports that the server will listen on for new requests. So we could change this very easily to say like 8000, and we could remove the second port and change this here. Now this isn't going to work initially because the server is still listening on the old ports. So now we've got a bit of an error. What am I doing? Undefined variable data. Bum, bum, bum. What did I do wrong? What did I change? Oh, I know what I changed. So I deleted that bit where it was writing the first bit of stuff out. Like we can actually just say hello world here and get rid of all this stuff because we don't really need the request body to make this change. So we've changed the port. I mean, this should identify like another problem with this. But there, hello world is being echoed out. This is sort of the bare minimum that we can do here to get a server to respond. So we set this port, and it will. This is where the new socket connections are listened from. And because this is a long-running script, or because we want to handle stuff in an event loop form, we have to run an event loop. This is part of Icicle code. So we run this event loop, and it creates a long-running process, and each tick of that event loop goes and checks for new events having happened or periodic things that are supposed to happen. And this is cool. Now that thing that I spoke about, that error that I spoke about, you may have noticed, is that in order to get changes here, like if we change this and we save the file, we've changed the response that we expected to send, but when we refresh, it's still got the old response. And that's because we are still running this as a long-running script, and it still has the old code. It's still running the old code in memory. If we stop this and restart it, then it's going to show a new response. So this is something to bear in mind. We either need to have a watcher in place, or we need to just remember to keep on restarting stuff. I want to copy this connection code out of here because we're going to have a use for this pretty soon. I'll just comment it so that it doesn't get in the way. We're particularly looking for the remote address stuff, I think. Also, for the sake of consistency, I hate using single quotes in here. A little pedantic, but anyway. Okay. So we get new connections in. We set up a response stream, and we create a new response. That's pretty cool. This is the basics of a web server that we're going to build on top of. So Simulated Greg asks, anything like node modern for PHP? There probably is. I just haven't done enough of this stuff to know what the best is. I'd probably use something not necessarily PHP related, and you know what, like depending on the host that you have, there's probably a nice easy way to have that set up for you. Like often for the stuff that I often code in Laravel, which is a PHP framework, and for the hosting for that I use Forge, which is done by the same guy that does Laravel. So there's code in there. I know there are mechanisms in there to be able to do stuff with like daemon management software in there. I forget the name, like I've gone totally blank. I'll remember sometime. Anyway, this is the basic web server that we're working with. Now what we need to do is have some kind of routing, depending on where you are in the world. Routing is potentially has bad connotations, or a router. It's pretty weird. I don't know. I'll use them interchangeably just to make everyone mad. Router, whatever. The one that I want to use is called FastRoute. Composer require. I think this is it. Or the name of the package anyway. It's done by a guy who does a lot of PHP core contribution, and it's pretty fast. It's a very apt name. GitHub. There we go. That's the one I'm looking for. Now this has, I'll just actually take this example code out of here. Yes. I say both root and root too. Hilarious. Okay, so this is the basic code for this. We're going to have to clean this up quite a bit, but I'll paste it in here for now. I'll just dump this in here for now and comment it out. Yen. Ideal code usage. Okay. Be quick. Okay, so how this works is, this is actually very clever. Like there's an interface for adding these routes to your application, and you specify the request method. I mean, it depends on the kind of dispatcher, but you specify a request method and a path and a callable thing to happen. So here you could have callbacks, is a thing you could have, or you could have, yes, New Zealand, or you could have, like an array of class, instance, and method name, the normal callable stuff, right? So you add these things in, then you get the method and the URI, and then it matches these things. But how it does this, you'll notice that this looks kind of regular expression-ish, and the reason for that is that these strings are compiled to regular expressions, and they're compiled very weirdly, like they're batched in certain ways and limited to like 50 entries per expression, and there's a lot of, he wrote a post about this explaining why it's done the way it's done, why it's done the way it is doing, or English, and there's like quite some good statistics about why it's done like this. Anyway, it's irrelevant to what we're doing. We're just going to define some routes like this, and then based on whether it was not found, we can show 404, or we can show a 500, or 401, or whatever the thing is for this. Or found, we can show the applicable endpoint for this. We can execute it. So that's cool. I mean, I think that's cool. Let's do something useful for this with this. I think it would be sensible just to have a routes.php file, and whatever this returns, in fact we can do something like, let's see, maybe we can return a dispatcher from this. Does that make sense? No, route collector, route collector. Let's have a file in here for helpers. Helpers. No, I don't want to do that. Do I want to do that? No, I don't want to do that.